faithfully sharing value and exploring great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally with the Book Talk.
Today, I'll interpret the book Black Gold World, Decoding the Operations of Drug Cartels. The author, Wainwright, is a British journalist for The Economist magazine. He previously served as its Mexico bureau chief, covering news in Central and South America and the U.S. border regions. Happy Mexico. As we all know, the drug problem is one of the world's most serious social issues, affecting nearly every country, with the Americas being a particularly hard-hit area. Boston, Latin America is a major global drug production hub, while the U.S. is the world's largest consumer. Each year, huge amounts of drugs like cocaine and marijuana are smuggled from Latin America into the U.S. market, forming a transnational drug supply chain. In most people's minds, drug traffickers are cunning, ruthless, cold-blooded killers. But to run this massive drug industry, relying only on violence isn't enough. They need sharp business smarts, too. In recent years, drug cartels in the Americas have developed new operational trends that align more with business principles. Therefore, the author argues that combating drug trafficking should start with targeting cartels' business strategies to achieve greater results with less effort. To write this book, the author ventured deep into U.S. border areas, Central and South America, even risking his life to meet drug traffickers, gaining lots of first-hand data. The book offers fresh, unique perspectives and was named one of Amazon's best books of 2016. Next, I'll break it down into two parts to share the key insights from the book. First, the new trends in the operations of drug cartels in the Americas. Second, how should countries in the Americas combat drug crime? All right, now let's start with the first part. I'll analyze it from 5 aspects: human resources, raw material supply, operational models, product sales, and market competition. The new trends emerging in the operations of drug cartels. The first trend is drug cartels using corporate-style management to recruit members. Management experts often say talent is a company's most vital asset, and that's especially true in the drug trade. Because drug traffickers frequently face police raids and mergers with other gangs, cartels have high turnover, but they can't recruit openly like other businesses. Therefore, human resources are the biggest headache for drug cartels. For drug cartels, people with criminal backgrounds are obviously the most suitable recruits. Thus, prisons become their best talent pools. Here, criminals have nothing to do, and after release, they have no jobs. So many drug traffickers, after being arrested, use this time in prison to scout for new members. And for these new members, it's like having a job immediately after getting out. Besides, the pay is unmatched by any other job. The book mentions that in the 1970s, an old drug trafficker named George King recruited a marijuana dealer named Ryder after being imprisoned. George King was skilled at transporting drugs by plane, while Ryder happened to have connections in Colombia. After their release, they partnered to smuggle cocaine from Colombia to the U.S. by plane. Their drug business grew bigger and bigger, and Ryder eventually became a major drug lord. Ryder once said that Danbury Prison was his university, where he sought money-making opportunities for the future. Another important reason prisoners join drug cartels is to protect themselves from being bullied. In prison, criminals usually form different gangs. These gangs extort protection money from isolated inmates and may execute disobedient prisoners at any time. In the 1960s, in a California prison, there was a gang formed by Mexican inmates called the Mexican Mafia. This gang frequently abused and even killed other inmates. To protect themselves, some Latino inmates banded together to form their own gang called La Familia. After its formation, it also began extorting protection money from other inmates, and its members continued drug trafficking and other crimes after release. In other words, La Familia had its own organization both inside and outside prison. When an inmate joins this gang in prison, he reports directly to the drug cartel upon release. Although La Familia started late, it quickly caught up and even surpassed the Mexican Mafia in growth momentum. How did they achieve this? This was because they made bold innovations in management style. Most drug cartels, including the Mexican mafia, operate under gang-style management, where the boss has absolute authority, members must obey orders without question, easily leading to leaders abusing power. They would frequently exploit and abuse low-level members, making many afraid to join due to fear of mistreatment. But La Familia emulated ordinary corporate management models, designing a different organizational structure. This gang divided its members into 4 tiers. At the top was a 3-person management committee, similar to a corporate board, where major decisions were voted on. Below them were several captains. Further down were lieutenants and soldiers, equivalent to company executives, middle managers, and regular employees. If lower-level members suffered exploitation or abuse, they could report their superiors. Even committee members could be impeached for harming others' interests, aiming to attract more members through democratic governance. We say omission, evidence. This approach proved highly effective. By 2016, when the book was written, La Familia had about 500 core members and approximately 1,000 affiliated members. Next, the second trend. Drug cartels ensure high profits by controlling supply chains. Take cocaine as an example. Its production is mainly concentrated in Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru. It's made from coca leaves cultivated by local farmers. Cartels buy coca leaves from farmers, process them into cocaine, then sell to customers. Since the late 1980s, these governments began anti-drug efforts by eradicating coca crops. The strategy was clear: combat the drug trade by controlling its source, following standard industry logic. If raw materials became scarce, cocaine prices would skyrocket. Users would then have to reduce consumption. By 2014, 120,000 hectares of coca crops had been destroyed. According to UN estimates, this represented nearly half of South America's coca cultivation. Such a blow would cripple any industry, causing soaring retail prices. Yet cocaine supply remains stable, with little price change.
So where did things go wrong?
The author identifies 3 reasons. First, due to the cockroach effect, cocaine's raw material supply didn't significantly decrease. The so-called cockroach effect is a local term in South America, meaning when you drive cockroaches out of one room, they immediately appear elsewhere. During eradication efforts, when coca plants are destroyed in one area, farmers simply move elsewhere to continue cultivation, partially offsetting the operation's effectiveness. Secondly, drug cartels adopted Walmart's business model to secure profits. As the world's largest retailer, Walmart generates about $500 billion in annual profits.
It achieves this by establishing buyers' monopolies in supplier markets.
Meaning suppliers have no alternative outlets and must sell exclusively to Walmart.
Thus, monopolistic Walmart can squeeze suppliers by dictating rock-bottom prices. In the drug trade, cartels play Walmart's role by monopolizing raw material markets. Typically, only one cartel dominates each region. As the sole buyer in local coca markets, they manipulate purchase prices at will. Thus, even when local coca supply decreases, traffickers' purchase prices remain unchanged. Therefore, cartels secure profits by monopolizing raw material supply. Eradication losses actually fall on farmers. Another key reason for stable cocaine prices is its profit margin. In Colombia, producing 1 kilogram of cocaine requires coca paste worth about $385. In the U.S., that same kilogram sells for approximately $122,000. Even after costs, the markup exceeds 300-fold.
With such profit margins, even tripling coca paste prices would affect cocaine's retail price by less than 1%.
Thus, we see traffickers ensure profits by controlling cocaine's supply chain. Next, the third trend. Drug cartels achieved rapid expansion through franchising models. Since the 1950s, franchising models have become widely popular worldwide. It involves licensors permitting franchisees to use trademarks, patents, and business models under contract while charging fees. For example, McDonald's built its global network through franchising. And Today, Mexican cartels like Sinaloa, La Familia, and Los Zetas have also achieved rapid expansion through this model. The author interviewed a Mexican drug trafficker named Miguel, a local leader for the Sinaloa cartel in the Madre region. Authorized by headquarters, he purchased marijuana from farmers, processed it, and smuggled it into the U.S. Locally, there are many traffickers like Miguel, each responsible for small territories under the Sinaloa cartel. Under the franchising model, these traffickers have considerable autonomy. They can choose which farmers to work with and independently decide purchase quantities and prices. But additionally, traffickers generally operate within their own territories, rarely encroaching on others' businesses.
Among Mexican cartels, Los Zetas is the fastest growing.
Let's now examine how they operate. When entering new markets, Los Zetas doesn't start from scratch. Instead, it identifies promising local gangs to develop into branches, signing unity pacts, equivalent to franchising contracts. Headquarters provides weapons and military training to branches, which remit a portion of income to headquarters. Like McDonald's, both parties benefit from the partnership. Branches self-fund operations, saving Los Zetas substantial expenses. Moreover, Los Zetas leverages local connections, like bribing law enforcement, which locals handle more effectively. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon can't crush a local snake. Los Zetas understands this principle. Through this model, they achieve rapid, low-cost expansion. Branches gain advanced weapons and professional military training from headquarters, such as manufacturing car bombs. This parallels McDonald's teaching franchisees to fry potatoes. Crucially, branches share the brand's notoriety. Operating as Los Zetas significantly boosts intimidation during criminal activities. Now, Los Zetas commit shocking violence like McDonald's World Cup ads. All franchises benefit from the heightened notoriety. Through franchising, Los Zetas expanded from eastern Mexico to Central America's Caribbean coast in just a few years, since 2010, truly becoming the McDonald's of criminal organizations. Now let's explore the fourth trend: drug traffickers in the United States. Selling drugs online relies on two key elements: the dark web and Bitcoin. The dark web requires special browsers to access and hides browsing history, while Bitcoin obscures payment trails. Together, they make it extremely difficult for police to track transactions, making online drug dealing safer than traditional methods. Buyers and sellers no longer need to hide in dark city corners, conducting furtive deals while constantly fearing police. Additionally, traditional drug transactions are inefficient. A user can only buy cocaine from known dealers, even if that dealer charges high prices and offers poor service. For dealers, finding customers willing to pay premium prices is equally challenging. In economics, this is called a networked economy, where transactions only occur within one's existing connections. But online trading solved this networked economy problem. On one hand, sellers can advertise products on websites. On the other, buyers can compare to find the best value drugs. To understand online drug dealing, the author registered on an illegal site called Evolution Marketplace. While browsing, he saw various drugs like cocaine, marijuana, and meth available. Users could select by quality and price, with buyer reviews just like legal sites. To test service quality, he messaged multiple sellers about dosages and packaging. All sellers responded very helpfully, and transactions required no leaving home, making online dealing safer and more convenient than street methods.
For police, combating online drug trade is extremely difficult due to tracking challenges, and shutting down one site just leads to new replacements.
Since online trading offers many advantages, drug transactions are increasingly moving to the internet. The final trend we'll discuss is drug cartels replacing competition with cooperation. Like other businesses, cartels face industry rivalry. To compete for territory and resources, they frequently erupt into violent clashes. While we imagine drug traffickers in constant life or death struggles, they sometimes resolve disputes differently. For a long period, El Salvador in Central America had one of the world's highest crime rates. But in 2012, something incredible occurred. Almost overnight, El Salvador's murder rate plummeted dramatically. Why did this happen? Two major gangs dominate El Salvador: MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha, and Barrio 18. They primarily engage in drug trafficking and extortion. When new members join MS-13, they're tattooed with the gang's distinctive markings. This makes defection or finding legitimate employment impossible for them. Barrio 18 operates similarly. These gangs constantly battle fiercely over territories. In contested areas, they wage price wars, lowering drug prices. An estimated 50,000 people died in gang conflicts during the 1990s, yet neither could eliminate the other. So the gang leaders devised a solution. Instead of endless fighting, why not cooperate? They divided the country into zones, each gang operating exclusively in their territories, maximizing profits. Crucially, this drastically reduced losses from violent conflicts. This practice of avoiding competition through agreements is called collusion in economics. In legitimate industries, collusion is prohibited by antitrust laws, but drug traffickers face no such restrictions. El Salvador's government even endorsed this approach, mediating a truce. After the truce took effect, El Salvador's murder rate dropped by nearly 2/3 almost overnight. However, the government's mediation approach faced strong public skepticism. To many, this was equivalent to the government encouraging crime and allowing gangs to grow stronger. In 2014, the Salvadoran government withdrew support for the truce, breaking the existing balance. Crime rates quickly rebounded, and gang conflicts resumed. All right, that concludes the first part. Let's summarize briefly. Drug cartels in the Americas have developed new operational trends aligning with business principles. We can summarize them into 5 points. First, recruiting members through corporate-style management. Second, ensuring high profits by controlling supply chains. Third, achieving rapid expansion through franchising models. Fourth, increasing stealth and market reach through online sales. Fifth, reducing competition losses through cooperation. So given these trends, how should countries in the Americas combat drug crime? In part 2, we'll discuss the author's recommendations, starting from demand side to shrink the drug market and combating drug cartels through crime prevention. First, the author argues that government crackdowns on supply don't shrink the market because drugs are inelastic goods. Even price hikes don't significantly reduce users, leaving market size unchanged. But if public drug consumption decreases, the market naturally shrinks. So how can we reduce drug consumption? The author suggests governments focus on demand control through greater investment in prevention campaigns, education, and addict treatment. We generally assume users get drugs from street dealers or online markets, but that's not the case. A UK government survey shows 54% of adult users obtain drugs at their own or acquaintances' homes.
Another 21% get them at parties and bars.
Only 11% purchase from dealers. Though UK-based, this reveals a universal pattern. Drug dealers aren't the end of drug sales. There's also a huge secondary retail market. So most drug users get drugs from relatives, friends, or colleagues. Many people accidentally come into contact with drugs through friends or family and then get hooked. Therefore, stopping these amateur dealers from spreading drugs can more effectively reduce public exposure. The author notes that if governments ramp up drug harm awareness in public media and schools, it helps curb spread by these non-professional dealers. Also, addiction treatment is a key way to fight drug consumption. Among users, heavy addicts are few but consume a lot. Plus, to fund their habit, most sell drugs too. Getting them clean removes the market's most valuable consumers. Switzerland is one of the most advanced in addiction treatment. Swiss doctors selected 3,000 heavy users, about 10 to 15% of addicts, but over 60% of consumption. Professional treatment sharply reduced their addiction. By pulling these heavy users from the market, drug spread was effectively controlled. In Zurich, Switzerland, 850 new addicts were registered in 1990. By 2005, that number dropped to 150. A U.S. RAND Corporation study found that for every $1 million spent combating cocaine raw materials in South America, U.S. consumption drops about 10 kilograms. If spent on prevention campaigns, it reduces about 20 kilograms. School campaigns work even better. It can cut 25 kilograms, but if spent on user treatment, it reduces over 100 kilograms. That wraps up combating drug consumption. Next, let's discuss how to fight drug cartels through crime prevention. In the author's view, governments prioritize immediate result enforcement, but neglect early drug prevention, which, though slower, yields greater benefits. The author proposes concrete measures focusing on improving prison conditions to prevent them from being criminal talent pools while helping released inmates avoid crime. So, we generally assume harsh prisons deter recidivism through intimidation, but evidence shows dangerous environments often push inmates to join gangs for protection. Improved prison conditions effectively shrink cartels' recruitment markets. In the Dominican Republic, Central America, prisons were similarly terrible, making inmates prime gang targets. To reverse this, the government built 17 new model prisons. Let's examine Majayo Women's Prison as an operational example. First, Majayo has maximum security zones isolating gang leaders, preventing them from giving orders. Decapitated gangs cause less trouble. Second, Majayo prioritizes inmate family connections since lacking relationships makes gang recruitment easy. Family bonds provide belonging. At Najayo, over 90% of inmates receive visitors. In one case, an inmate's only known relative was a distant uncle living 200 miles away in the mountains. Still, prison staff located him and arranged visitation. Third, to help inmates find post-release employment, the prison emphasizes literacy education, even mandating reading classes.
Here, inmate illiteracy is 0, with 30 plus taking university courses.
Finally, Najayo prioritizes guard quality. Old prison guards were poorly skilled. Najawo guards undergo rigorous training to become qualified mentors who properly guide inmates. These measures naturally increase costs for new prisons. It spends $12 daily per inmate, triple old prisons' expenditure. But it's worth it. Half of inmates from old prisons reoffended within 3 years. In the new model prisons, this rate is less than 3%. Additionally, to prevent released inmates from returning to crime, the author believes governments should offer more support. For example, in El Salvador, released prisoners with gang tattoos can't find jobs and must return to gangs. Thus, the author suggests governments remove these tattoos, giving them a chance to find new jobs. In Los Angeles, USA, local government already does this, offering free tattoo removal to inmates seeking rehabilitation. That concludes part 2. Let's briefly summarize. First, the author recommends focusing anti-drug efforts on demand side, prevention campaigns, education, and addict treatment to combat the drug consumption market. Second, when combating drug cartels, the author suggests governments invest more in crime prevention. That covers the main content of Black Gold World. Today's drug cartels are no longer just violent gangs. They use advanced management concepts to build transnational drug supply chains. Therefore, combating traffickers must also follow business principles to achieve optimal results. All right, that's our interpretation of Black Gold World. Find show notes below the audio. Until next time.